Tim Kirby Russia Hot Takes Aukus. This Australian-UK-US alliance with a fun-sounding name has actually been met with great optimism from within Russia. So the question is, why?
Thank you, Boris, and I want to thank that fellow down under. Thank you very much, pal.
Now, we can't forget that NATO has been a real thorn in the side of Russia for decades. NATO was created even before the Warsaw Pact as essentially an anti-Russian or anti-Soviet alliance, however you look at it. But the fact that NATO continues to grow after communism is gone kind of proves that it was really more of a anti-Russian alliance. Now, the rise of this AUKUS, this sort of independent UK-Australian-US alliance above NATO to deal with the Chinese in the Pacific, South Pacific, is actually a sort of good evidence that things may be changing. We can't forget that whenever politicians, governments make new alliances, laws, organizations that serve the same purpose as ones that always exist, there's always some sort of shadiness to it. And this could be an example of that. There may actually be, and what the Russians are hopeful for, is that there may be a big divorce going on in Europe. We can't forget that Europe wants to create its own sort of European army.
Can the European Union defend itself? Its leader says the bloc should increase its military capabilities and not rely so much on US-led NATO.
We also can't forget that the previous president of the United States, for basically Trump's opinion on the whole thing, was to either make NATO effective, as in pay for their share of the protection rather than the U.S. just supporting all of it, or just do away with it.
I have been very, very direct with Secretary Stoltenberg and members of the alliance in saying that NATO members must finally contribute their fair share and meet their financial obligations. But 23 of the 28 member nations are still not paying what they should be paying and what they are supposed to be paying for their defense. This is not fair to the people and taxpayers of the United States.
May actually be starting to see a gradual sort of divorce between the Western European military forces and sort of the Anglo-Saxon world. We can't forget that for many, many years, the whole Five Eyes organization between the Anglo-Saxon nations has done a very good job of working together. And where the Russian, again, the optimism comes from is that it would seem that maybe part of the problem in the bigger foreign reach that Washington and London have has really been dragging Western Europe along for the ride.
And there are various fundamental reasons why Europe and America are not quite the same soulmates as they used to be. Time was 100 years ago when almost all of the immigrants in America, or the foreign-born population, were from Europe. Now only 10% are. America's trade is getting pulled off towards China, and China itself is the rising rival superpower. So America's attention is increasingly drawn towards the Pacific rather than across the Atlantic.
And if Washington, with the sort of consent and agreement of London, is actually going to continue to move away from NATO and move to a sort of more Anglo-Saxon structure, this is going to be very good for Russia. Why? Because, based on the rules of geopolitics, it's going to free up a lot of space and freedom in continental Europe. And without a NATO, ever increasing NATO, clamping down on Russia, it would be a very, very good day for Russia if Washington is truly restructuring like Trump promised and like Biden seems to be doing.